Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Oh, hit the wrong button. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to A-Rated B Movies and B-Rated A Movies. I am Tom Connors. With me is my co-host, Script Doctor. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a good bat time to talk about a good bat movie.
Yes, Robin, it is quite. It is raining, so if y'all hear the thunder and the lightning or I disappear, that's why. So then Script Doctor's on his own.
I'm jumping ship as soon as that happens.
No, I'll gonna try and get a hold of Andre and be like, get in there and help him end the stream. Maybe Mikey's still signed in if worse comes to worse. But anyhow, yes, we're going to talk about the 1966 Batman film, starring Adam West, Burt Ward, and the rest of, well, most of the cast, we should say, of the television show. But we're going to get into that as we move along here. But yes, there's the classic poster from the film. It was released between the first and second season of the television show, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Now, you're probably more of a connoisseur of this show than I am and know much more about it. I, of course, grew up with it. Over the past few years, though, I probably haven't seen nearly as much as I did years ago. Of course, the show had quite a bit of a resurgence during the 89 Batman season or whatever you want to call it, where Batman came out. So like it was everywhere for a while, and we finally got it on Blu-ray here a couple years back. So there was a bit of a time where it was kind of hard to come by, but it's not like it's ever really been out of the public eye, I would say.
Well, no, when I first saw it, I was only maybe 2 years old, and by that time, the Batman TV show had kind of been in syndication for, 20-ish years or so. And it didn't really leave syndication on kind of your
Right.
major affiliates until I think the mid to late 90s. And then it wasn't then until like the cable shows like TV Land and all those retro channels
I was going to say,
started
actually, I think
airing them.
Nickelodeon made a deal with them in the 90s, right after the first movie came out, if I remember right.
And they're probably more like cable. Yeah, they were more of a cable show.
Yeah, because I
Um,
remember they would show them every day, 2 episodes, because I remember taping them off of Nickelodeon. Well, of course, you wouldn't, in Canada, I don't know if you had Nickelodeon or if you have an equivalent of, but yeah.
no, we did not have an equivalent of Nickelodeon.
Yeah, back then, before Nickelodeon was the SpongeBob and obnoxious cartoon channel, after like 5 p.m., they would start showing like classic cartoons and shows like Batman, and then their night block would famously be TV Land, which eventually became its own channel. But yeah, so that was kind of part of the kids side of the TV Land block, where they would start with 2 episodes of Batman back to back, which of course would be the entire continuing saga of the 2 episodes. Because like I think so, for those who don't know, when this show first started, it was kind of unique in that it had 2 brand new episodes a week,
Yep.
which was a rarity in Hollywood. Now, basically, what they did is they took an hour episode and split it up over 2 nights. But the way they did it was to emulate the old serials and slash how the comic books would be. It'd be like, get next month's exciting issue to see if Batman and Robin get out of the
Death Trap.
Joker's death trap.
That was it. The format is basically you would have their first episode would be the crime occurs, Batman and Robin investigate, and their investigation leads them to being ambushed into a trap, and that trap was this elaborate death trap that was set, and that was the end of your first episode, leaving you on a cliffhanger. Then the next night you would have the follow-up episode where okay, they get out, and then the first crime that they had in the previous episode was actually just step one of a bigger crime that ends up being enacted in the second episode that Batman and Robin figure out, and then they stop it, they fight, and then the bad guys go to jail, and then you have a little epilogue with like Commissioner Gordon or Batman or whatever talking about the moral of that episode or what have you. And it was a very basic type of formula. What made it kind of fresh for, because they did over 100 episodes, was the fact that they would just have all these really silly and interesting capers to fuel the episodes, and on top of that, the show would be constantly digging at the ineptitude of police, the ineptitude of basically the justice system by the people that run it, the ineptitude of government. A lot of things, like all these people are very pathetic and helpless. And if it weren't for Batman, the world would kind of fall apart. And they all kind of acknowledge that, and it's really really funny. Because there's this one episode where Batman is there's a new commissioner in town because the mayor's wife has been brainwashed by these radical feminists. And so the commissioner is now a woman, and all the police officers in Gotham City are now women, and they're all so distracted by superficial things that they're not actually addressing crime. and
that
it's
episode aged well.
Well, the best part is that it's basically a commentary on women's choice, because it's like, you can't just put women into the position because they're women. You have to do qualified women, and there has to be qualifications.
That's a little progressive, actually, but yeah.
Well, that's the subtext that a lot of the Batman show did. It was done in earnest. It was a comedy, but everybody played it straight. And then on top of that, the one thing that kept it kind of consistent is that the moral fiber of who the characters are, even with the villains, was consistent to their portrayal in the comics.
Sorry, I thought that was a picture, not a video.
I didn't send you any videos.
No, that was me. I was trying to fill out some time before we got to your specific pictures, but yeah. No, like that's the thing I think is great, is that you pointed out, is that it's not so much like they called it campy, right? But it's more comedy and satire than I would say it's camp.
Yeah, the camp isn't really. I think the camp kind of comes from the third season a little bit, because they lost a lot of money in their production. They actually had a budget cut, which means the actors weren't being paid as much, the show wasn't getting as much. And then the third season, when they introduced Batgirl, they couldn't even afford complete sets, so you had these giant black backdrops and little like stage theater set pieces to indicate what the room is. And it was really unfortunate because the show was still making a lot of money. Just for some reason, I guess CBS, because they were the network at the time producing it, just felt like it wasn't performing on the scale it wanted to, because the ratings would be going up, and then they'd have a dip, and then it'd go up again, and then it'd have a larger dip, but then it would go back up again. And the ratings kind of started picking up in season 3. And season 3 changed the format to singular episodes, but it was then the whole season 3 is serialized. So episode 1 goes right into episode 2, and it continues that all the way to the end of the season, where they're just kind of back to back to back episodes, which is the first time a television series that originally was episodic became completely serial. At least for in the contemporary aspects of this, like beyond a soap
right
opera.
I mean, we'd had soap operas and things like that to that point, but like, yeah, what you're saying, where an episodic show started actually doing a continued storyline, basically.
Yep. And then, and the thing is, like, CBS was just completely blindsided by the fact that, or like completely lost focus, the fact that this was kind of a hit show, to the point where they canceled it, and then NBC wanted to buy it. Oh, sorry, ABC? Yeah, okay, I guess it had to have been ABC then.
You know what, if you don't mind,
yeah,
if Clobby's not busy,
yeah, let's throw him in here.
I was just going to say, I think there's somebody who definitely needs to hop in here, if you don't mind. All right, I'm going to send you the link, Clobby, if you're not busy. No pressure.
And NBC wanted to buy the show to do it themselves, but apparently they destroyed the Batcave set, and NBC refused to rebuild it, so they decided not to pursue a continuation of the series. And even Lyle Wagner, for years until he got Wonder Woman, would like make fun of Adam West, saying that if he was cast as Batman because he auditioned for the role, the show would probably have gotten 5 or 6 seasons.
Well, Dan, I agree with you. Like, this is my version of the Joker.
The Riddler?
Yeah, or Riddler. I mean, Jesus Christ. Yes, I meant the Riddler. As far as like growing up, this was the version I knew, and I gravitated towards. And he was always kind of a favorite of mine. I remember getting the superpowers figure of the Riddler specifically because he was one of my favorite villains. But let's say hello to some of the people we got in the chat. We have Sean here. How are you doing, Sean? We got Steven, aka Deleted Scenes here. We got Midnight Rider, who sent us in a $5 super chat. And check out that cool ass icon. says, my friends and I watched this movie, then immediately watched the Adam West, Burt Ward commentary. It's the funniest one I've heard. I've not got a chance to listen to that yet. I do have the Blu-ray, but I would love to check that out. That's probably pretty good.
I have the digital Blu-ray. It doesn't come with the commentary, but it comes with some
Uh-huh.
like, a little bit of the documentary stuff. But
Yeah.
I have the special DVD edition, like, the black case with the red bat on it. That was
Oh, that was, yeah, it was a, God, I remember that was like 20 years ago. And welcome, Clobbering Times. How are you doing, my friend?
Hey, man, thanks for the invite. Didn't mean to intrude. I was just
Not
No,
at
it's
all.
no intrusion, man.
talking about one of my
Anybody
favorite
knows more
topics ever.
about this stuff than we do. It's definitely you.
Oh, I don't, probably not, but I'm willing to help any way I can.
Wow.
Yes, but you are right. It was ABC that originally produced this, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Lucky guess on my part. When this first aired here, I live in such a primitive place. We only had two of the affiliates. We had one channel that rotated between ABC and NBC, and this was on.
So now, who actually produced the show? Because I know Fox owns it now, but at the time, was it 20th Century Television who produced it? I think
20th Century Television was the producer was a producer and distributor for the film, and I believe they had a contract with the show.
Yeah,
Yep.
Right. That's
Yeah,
why
I
it
just
took
didn't know
forever
if
for
it was
the
acquired
thing to
him.
come out on DVD.
Yeah, I know. Well, there was so many like legal issues. Yeah, like getting the movie out, I think they didn't have as many problems, but the show was a totally different issue.
Oh, the movie was out forever.
Yeah.
It was totally different distribution. So it ran on, we had a cable station back in the 70s that just ran all the movies. And even as early as the mid 70s, it was showing this thing over and over again, which of course is why I got to watch it over and over again. Not the show, just the movie.
Yeah, and as you and I were talking earlier, Clobby, this movie does one of the best balances of the four super criminals than any Batman movie to date.
Oh, it's perfect.
Well, it helps that the show established them already. That does help.
But it helps a little
It does
bit.
help.
But
the show just kind of introduced them as they were like, most of the time they were just already there.
Well,
Only when it was
there's
like,
no origins in this. In fact, this movie here, they have this whole, they do the exposition. If this was your first introduction to Batman, you'd completely understand who all these four supervillains are before all of them even come on screen, because they have this scene which is like, what super criminals are currently like not in prison. And then they go through the CCTV, the closed circuit television of, okay, this is the Joker. What's he about? He does, joke crimes. Who's Catwoman? Oh, she's a femme fatale feline philanderer. Who's the Riddler? Oh, he's a puzzler of deduction and manipulation. The Penguin is just, a foul, gangster. And you get all the information quickly in those shots. And then the other part too, which I think is kind of brilliant, is that they don't have Batman and Robin assume that all four of them are working together. At first they think, it's only three of them. And then they realize after the investigation that Catwoman's involved too. And that's when Batman's like, oh, they're going after the world.
They turned on that little TV, and then the commissioner's office says, known super criminals not currently in prison. And
William Dozier, who does the narration.
Yeah, Dozier, that voiceover.
Yeah,
it's
great.
I know one thing that at least the reason Catwoman got a little bit bigger part was Adam West more so than anything, because this is one thing I do know is he went to the producers, and for the movie, he wanted more time as Bruce Wayne. So that whole subplot of those two on the date and stuff is all his doing, because he wanted more face time on the screen, so he could get his face out there.
It's also a very funny subplot too.
Well, yes, but
and it's got one of the greatest lines of all time. When on my old show, I don't even have the clip anymore, I would open up with my different Batman sound clips, and one of them was Bruce Wayne from that scene going, "You filthy criminals." And Adam West. I love that.
Yep.
Darius Munchausen sends us some popcorn, I believe. I can't see. Let me see if that's what it is.
Darius.
I'm willing to bet
it
is.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you so much. And we got some member chats here too. From Cardinal Sin, who says, "Hail Midnight's Edge chats and mods, love you." Well, thank you so much, Cardinal Sin. We love you too. And then Kenneth LaRock had his I keep forgetting what the hell, milestone. Yeah, milestone. That's the word I'm looking for 9 months. Thank you so much. And then we got Mr. Grant Gregory in the house as well, who says, "Hail Tom, bad time, script and shirtless script." And of course, he sent this before Bobby was here, but I think he's trying to tell you something.
Oh,
he wants to see you take the shirt off.
Oh,
what, right now?
He's You know, maybe he gets off on how awkward it is. I don't know. X
Right.
Morbius is also now now a member. Thank you so very much for becoming a member. Let's see what level. Minimum effort, puppy. So even though this is a different show, we're going to give you a minimum effort, puppy, because that's what we do here on the channel. And this is also Mikey's favorite. He loves the minimum effort, puppy. There we go. So, all right, back to the program at hand here. So, yeah, basically, when this movie came out,
I was 2 years old.
I was an itch in my father's genitals.
Oh man, did we lose Tom?
Maybe. I think we
Oh,
lost
my.
him? He said it was raining in his neighborhood.
Oh, could be some. Oh, we'll hang. We'll vamp for him until he gets back. Like you said, when this movie came out in 1966, dude, and wow, the TV show had already caught fire in like January of '66.
Yep.
As
the
a
show had already
youngin.
been on for a season, and it was a pretty big.
Whoa,
Yes.
you're
Hey, I'm
dipping
back.
in and out there.
You're
Mike.
back. There you go. Yeah.
So, yes, you were saying, guys, continue.
Oh, there you
Okay,
go.
you're
there
back.
You go. There you are.
I gotta
it was.
love the weather.
It debuted on the off season because it didn't. It wasn't a September debut. It was January. So it was
Yeah.
kind of and it not the first 65 episodes hit before the summer.
Yes, and it was unlike anything ever seen before. That's for sure. On television.
It was. I mean, it was the debut of color TV being far more accessible to audiences. So they really popped up all the pinks and the blues and the purples and everything they could. And then they had these elaborate, hysterical props and death trap gimmicks, which were absolutely fantastic. A lot of the writing stemmed off of some of the Greek classics. Like they have one of the quotes from like Julia Newmar's Catwoman in one of the earlier episodes, which is like, which will it be, the cat or the lady or the tiger? And I'm like, oh, that's pretty clever because that's an old poem and Greek myth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And there's a lot of cleverness in this series. And then on top of that, even the fighting, like rarely do the stunt guys actually step in to the costumes for fighting. Like it's pretty much Burt Ward and Adam West doing a bunch of it. And then every once in a while, they'll, for something a bit more edgy, they'll throw in the stunt guys.
Well, the fighting is very, very choreographed. Like it's very much like a dance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially with that music.
Yeah.
And especially in this film where you've got Adam West in his suit, not bat suit, but as Bruce Wayne, fighting the super criminals, trying to rescue Miss Kitka, and having to dive out of the tavern to get away.
One thing about the film as well is it's higher budget than the TV show. So, and in the first season and in the film, they spent a lot more money on the visual, the word effects. In other words, it was actually, if you'll notice, in the first, they would punch someone, it would be on the pal zap wow would come onto the screen. That was more
onomatopoeia. Yeah.
Second season and on, the whole screen would just go boom with the pal effect or effect and everything because it was cheaper. So they were actually spending a little bit more money on the first season and the movie.
Yeah, and then this one here, because they had the extra money for the film, they introduced the Batcopter and the Batboat.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And this has probably the greatest line in cinema history right there.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
I was telling him earlier, Tom, that one of the first time I got to meet Adam West in like 85, and he and Burt Ward were in costume, I had him say that line, and I had to remind him of it at first. And then he remembered it. He goes, oh, some days you just can't get rid of a bomb. And he started laughing. He remembered the line.
Oh, it's a classic. It's probably one of the most famous lines now. I use it all the time. I mean, of course.
Who doesn't?
And I got a shirt specifically for it. So yeah.
And the choreography of that scene of him trying to get rid of the bomb is absolutely brilliant because he's got the marching band, the lady with the stroller, you've got the lovers kissing in a boat. Then
it's basically like a Buster Keaton act.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's really well paced.
The ducks, and of course, I mean, it culminates with him not throwing the thing to kill the little duckies, and you're like, oh god.
Yeah. Well, that's
so
the humor in the show, and that's where I
Yes.
think script is right by pushing back against. No, it wasn't campy, because
No.
I agree with him. It was more satire. It's definitely clever, especially when they do the riddles. Like the riddles are hilarious if you sit there and listen to them break down the riddles.
Oh yeah.
You know, because it's always like, you know, something that has nothing to do with anything that he's saying, but like, you know, because like the one in this one, I can't remember, it's like what it gets to, but eventually gets to something like pulling your leg, the Joker. You know, it's like, where did you get any of that shit? It's like
one of the ones in the first episode, the first of the series, you have, what was it? You have 4 men. You have 4 men in a boat with 3. So you have 4 men in a boat with 4 cigarettes, but only 3 matches. Well, how do they smoke? With no matches. Sorry, how do they smoke? You have 4 men in a boat with 3 cigarettes. How do they smoke? There's no matches, of course. I messed it up.
Yeah, but that's a
Robin figures out you throw one on board and you make. Oh yeah, you throw one of the cigarettes away and make the
overboard,
make it
and
a cigarette lighter.
A lighter, yeah.
I screwed it all up, but that was. Yeah.
Yeah, and usually they're kind of clever like that, but like in this movie specifically, there's this really long one that they get into where they just go off on these random things that eventually gets to all the
they're crazy. It's so ridiculous.
Well, like one of them is like, what does a turkey do when it's upside down? It gobbles up.
It gobbles up.
Yeah.
And then
no, the riddles are always so great.
3 ounces and very dangerous from a tree, and it's a sparrow with a machine gun.
Yeah. And of course, you know, it just goes without saying how terrific the actors are. Gorshin and Romero and Burgess Meredith, particularly Frank Gorshin, who was just a comedic genius.
We were talking about this the other day, and even more so, I would say all the, like, pretty much across the board, all the actors brought something to the villains that had never been there before, aside from maybe Joker. Because if you look, like the Penguin, Burgess added a lot to that character that I know was adapted later on, because I did look into it a little bit more. Like, you know, the whole that was him.
Yep.
That was all him. And the whole like that business, and the same thing with, like, we brought up how the other day Gorshin was responsible for the Riddler getting more than one costume, and I'm sure some of the more maniacal behavior we got out of him later on and stuff like that. And clearly Jim Carrey was doing just Frank Gorshin. Like, let's be real. Like, it's pretty much he's doing his impression, just amped up on coke. But yeah.
And then the other part too is you have like, well, the reason Burgess Meredith made the squawking is because he had quit smoking like a decade before, and he had to had the what the heck is it called?
I can't remember now either. The cigarette thing.
The
holder.
Cigarette holder.
Yes.
It has a name, and I can't think of it. Yeah,
I'm forgetting the name too. But every time he squawked, it was a result of him accidentally inhaling. So he just had to go with it.
Yeah. What is it, by the way, with the you know, it's funny how the Penguin and Batman's car. Penguin steals Batman's car in an episode. Then they're ripping it off in Batman Returns, and in the animated series, he steals his car. Something about the Batmobile and the Penguin.
Likes the Batmobile. I think that it's a great little gimmick to have. It's funny. It's like the only
kind of like
with steal his Batmobile is the Penguin.
Kind of like with the Penguin becoming mayor. So it's kind of a little gimmick all the time too. Yeah,
that's probably
one of the first episodes. Yeah, I was gonna say it's one of the first Penguin episodes too, I believe.
I don't know if that was first or second season, but His Honor. It's called His Honor the Penguin, Dishonor the Penguin with a 2-parter, and that's one of my top episodes. That was that's right. Classic.
Yeah, because the Penguin pulls better than Batman.
Yes.
In what world? But yeah,
that was a great political satire, by the way, that episode.
Well, that's the beauty. Like, and not to shit on the Batman, the one that just come out, but like, I don't remember if it was on the first show we talked about it or the more recent one. When I think it was the more recent one when Script had seen it, and I'd brought up how, you know, certain things he had done in that movie felt like things they would have done in this show for the satire of it, right? Like him knocking on the front fucking door of the club. Like, that's something Adam West Batman would have done, and Robin would have been like, why are we knocking? Why don't we just sneak in? We can't sneak in, Robin.
Did you expect him to say
private property and there's a $5 establishment?
Say, excuse me, citizens. I would like to, as a duly deputized agent of the law, I would like to ask you some questions.
You know what would be kind of funny is that if Batman did kind of quote unquote break into the Iceberg Lounge, and before he leaves, he tosses Penguin like $15 for the cover charge. Like after he's like beat up all the thugs and everything, he's like, "Here, I owe you for the cover charge," and just like kind of rubbing it in.
That would be a 4K of this, huh? Well, I mean, there's a Blu-ray at least. It's pretty cheap.
It would be nice. Yeah, it would be nice if they did a 4K because I mean, the whole show and the movie was done on film. I mean, of course, as you were saying, Klobby, they had a little bit more money for the movie itself. Like they used actual film cameras, I'm sure, as opposed to I think the show was shot on either 16 millimeter or just standard 35.
Yes.
I think it was on 35 because the Blu-ray looks absolutely gorgeous.
Well, yeah, they do. They look gorgeous. But like the movie, I think was probably filmed on much better cameras and stock as far as that goes. But because you can tell a little bit of the difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But this film was, I mean, it's really well paced. It's tight.
Well, let's be real. It is kind of an elongated 2 episodes put together, but it is very well done.
Well,
like out of all of them, it's one of my favorite.
It's true, but one thing that this movie has that it doesn't have that the shows have is there's no cliffhanger escape required. It's not there.
Yeah, You're right. They didn't have to do that.
They didn't have to. Yeah,
but they had some traps. But you're right. They got into trouble, but they solved their cliffhanger right there. That is the difference. But so that's true. But yeah, that's it's what's hilarious to me about is when they mentioned what are they after? The whole city? Any 2 of them might try that. Well, the whole country did. If it were 3, I would say yes. 4 of them, their own gimmick must be the entire world.
That's what I mean. Like it's clearly sad. Like the whole thing is done so tongue in cheek, but it's done so earnestly. I think it was a great word you used earlier, script, which is the whole point. And that's where it's like, to me, that's not even camp. You're right. Like you made that argument before script. And I'm like, because I always called it campy for years and never really thought about it. But it is. It's more of a satire than it is camp. And that's what that whole riddle, maybe I can find the clip from the movie, but the riddle they break down where they figure out everybody is just so hilarious.
Oh, well, that's the gobble up riddle. But there's the 2 others before that because it's like they're deducing the whole the holographic boat that they went to sort of rescue the person that somehow the police got word that Commodore Schmidlap, who is a scientist that works for a brewery called Big Ben Brewers, has invented the ultimate distillation machine, which is through dehydration. and he's like, they went out to sea for Catwoman, and then he's like, and the shark.
Yes, exactly. That's my point. Yes, like where the fuck do you get this shit?
The exploding shark was pulling my leg.
But that's the humor of it, right? Like that, it's so clever, but yet stupid at the same time.
And then there's the exploding octopus as well.
But here's a couple of bits of it we could probably get away with.
Atomic submarine.
Grave situation, Robin.
Only we knew what he was up to. What he was. Holy Polaris! That's a submarine, no doubt.
Funny, he said it before the thing ever came out of the water, too. Did you notice that?
Those were popular at the time.
That missile, look, it's written something.
Oh, God. What way success of it. The nicer times. Remember they actually made a Batman movie that you could bring a kid to. Imagine that.
Yeah, I mean, and the other part too is like these are genuine brain teasers. I mean, their answers are like the first one makes sense for the answer. The second one, it comes out of nowhere. It's like what say 6 ounces sits in a tree and is very dangerous. I mean, technically it's a cat, but they say it's a sparrow with a machine gun. And I love that.
It's so ridiculous.
I think we paused it long enough. We could probably finish it.
A riddle in the form of a joke.
Let's race back to headquarters, Robin. You know what this means, don't you?
I love it. I would go. I need to go watch this again for the 20 billionth time.
Even Joker, Riddler, those 3 super criminals, their forces combined. For heaven only knows what infamous objective. It may be worse than that, gentlemen. Worse? That's what saves your life. How
See, I love how they're like, like this whole thing with the way they're walking. That's what I was talking earlier. Script about it, like being a Buster Keaton act almost.
Yep.
Like it's
They're
so
never
well
gonna bump into each
choreographed.
other.
Exactly. Like clearly this is choreographed. Like they figured this all out ahead of time. You know.
Look at this pair of joking riddles.
What does a turkey do when he flies upside down?
He gobbles up.
Of course.
And number 2. One weighs 6 ounces, sits in a tree, and is very dangerous. A sparrow with a machine.
Now, combine both answers. What kind of creature would gobble up a bird in a tree?
Heaven protect us.
A cat. Yes, sir.
I love the way he says it too. The way he says their name.
Cat woman.
The old arch nemesis, Cat Woman.
The criminal catalyst in this entire affair. Our old arch enemy, Catwoman.
Joker, Riddler, and Catwoman too. Some of the angles of that rectangle is too monstrous to contemplate.
We've been given the plainest warning. They're working together to take over.
To take over what, Batman? Gotham City?
Any 2 of them might try that.
The whole country?
If it were 3 of them, I would say yes. But 4, their minimum objective must be the entire world.
I love how he
I
just
like the fact that Commissioner Gordon says I can't contemplate the angles of that rectangle when he's like, you could also say square.
Yeah.
But he's delivering because rectangle. I'm like, that's funny.
Cat Woman.
But yeah,
Love it,
like
man.
it starts off like because you sent me these images scripts, so I don't know if you want to set these up at all or
Yeah, do the producer ones first. They're in reverse order, so the first one I sent you of the 3 should be the first one. Yeah.
all right. I think I got them in the right order then. All right. Because yeah, this is how the movie starts out anyway.
Starts
There
with
you go.
acknowledgement. Yeah. Acknowledgement. We wish to express our gratitude to the enemies of
Enemies of
crime and
crime.
crusaders against crime throughout the world for their inspirational example. And like, this is from the producers to the people watching this. And it's like to them and to lovers of adventure, lovers of pure escapism, lovers of unadulterated entertainment, lovers of the ridiculous and the bizarre, the fun lovers everywhere. This picture is respectfully dedicated. It's like that's a really important
I
thing.
love it. You gotta love it.
What have a lot of people been saying for the past 5 to 6 years?
Yeah. Imagine
And-
that.
And then here's the other part too. If we have overlooked any sizable groups of lovers, we apologize, the producers. Like, there's some honor to this, right? It's something that you kind of wish more productive. Even if this is a hollow gesture,
It's a tongue in cheek, but yeah.
it still has more effort than what we're getting today.
Well, and part of it, I'm sure, is prompted by the whole idea that when they did the show, they were having issues with. That's why Batman's deputized. They were afraid of showing vigilantism on TV.
Yeah. Even in one of the comics, I think there's a panel where Gordon gives kind of like a pseudo badge to Robin as like a gift, even though he's not actually like deputized. It's just something that he did. I can't remember what issue that was from, but
It's happened.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, that's because they knew that Hollywood paid their bills, just Nova. Or that we paid Hollywood's bills, I should
Right.
say.
Back then they actually cared about making money. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole reason they did this film is the show was such a hit. They're like, we got to hit this. We got to get the theater market.
Well, and it's kind of similar to what they did with Superman, but a little bit on the reverse side. Because Superman, they released the movie to promote the show. This was put out, like you were saying, script before we were talking. This was put out more so because the show was such a big hit.
You're talking about the George Reeves stuff, right?
Yeah, because they released Mole Men just to promote the show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To where this actually came out because the show was such a big hit.
That's right. That's right. And then it was huge. And I'm glad I was a little bit young to see it in the theater in its first run, but in the late 70s, they brought it back to theaters for a while, and I got to go once. At least I got to see it on a big screen once.
Yeah, I got to see it at a repertory theater that was doing a showcase with it. Unfortunately,
that'd be cool.
Adam West was
Nice.
unable to attend, but he was invited, and he sent basically a letter and like a little video at the beginning of the
Oh,
movie.
okay. Cool.
But yeah, because unfortunately I never got a chance to meet him while he was alive.
He was great. Great.
I heard he did a lot of practical jokes
Really
on
nice.
people's hosts.
He was really nice, man.
Yeah. So, anyways, the plot of this film is quite simple. The four super criminals plan to have stolen this invention, which dehydrates. Essentially, it's supposed to dehydrate barley, I think, for whiskey. There's some of the funny jokes that parents understand, but kids don't. Batman has just tossed the cat Hecate into the life preserver, and it says "Bon voyage, pussy." But yeah, the plot is basically these four super criminals have kidnapped an inventor and stolen his invention, which dehydrates barley for whiskey, and they decide to use it on people. And they test it on 5 guinea pigs, like actual goons that are guinea pig 1 through 5. And once they do that, they decide to basically dehydrate a parody of the United Nations Security Council and hold all of their respective countries ransom for $1 billion each, totaling $9 billion. And that's a lot of money, and they figure out how to do it. And Batman and Robin are basically just kind of nipping at their heels, trying to figure out all the details of their plan and stop them. And it's a really fun adventure. You have Batman and Robin in their maiden voyage of the Bat helicopter. And they're flying overhead, and there's 4 police officers walking by, and they stop and see him up, and they just lower their hats to their chest and then salute Batman.
Yeah, and then see the guy on the guy on the ground just gives a fellow a good feeling to know they're up there doing their job.
And it's funny because it's like it's not their job; it's the policeman's job.
They are duly deputized agents of the law.
Yep. And then,
as I said, that was a big deal for the censors or whatever. Because sorry, go ahead.
And then the next shot is you get a whole bunch of women in bikinis exercising on the roof, stopping to wave up at Batman and Robin, and the trainer's just like, it's just casually throwing up the arm. Okay, I got a class to teach. But the women are just losing it over them.
Jack LaLanne.
Yeah, and they're all like gorgeous women too. Like there's a lot of skin in this for a kids film.
Well, it was the 60s. They didn't care then. So
yeah, it was the groovies. Yeah,
and even with Lee Merriweather when she's in her like pink silk robe, it's
let's talk about that for a minute. This movie came upon them so quickly and came together so quickly that several actors already had other things going on. So that's why we got another Catwoman, for instance, because Eartha Kitt was signed up for other work.
No, Lee Merriweather was doing. Julie Newmar was doing something else supposedly. They hadn't even gotten Eartha Kitt yet.
Oh, that's what I meant. Sorry. Yes.
I think it was a film called McKenna's Gold or something she was working on.
Yeah, she had already signed on for another movie, and this came because they shot this in the break.
They did, and the thing is that according to like the if you take a look at the daily sheets for the call sheets, apparently all of her shooting days were about a couple weeks before the production of the Batman film. And then she didn't go back until after the Batman film was, she didn't go back until after the Batman film was completed. So she could have done it, but I think what ended up happening is that there's a miscommunication with her agent, who just decided to say no, she's shooting this film at the time and didn't pay attention to what the dates were because she was available to do it, but she didn't. And she's made many records saying like I should have done it. I don't know why I didn't. And after investigating, you find out, the agent probably didn't get the dates right. Yeah, but we got Lee Merriweather, who she came back in season 2, playing the heiress to a rich guy. She gets kidnapped, and she's the only other woman in the Batman show that invites Bruce Wayne into her apartment after a date. And even Bruce Wayne is like, it's nearly 10:30. She's like, but I baked milk and cookies. And he's like, milk and cookies, you say? It's like, yeah, well. Man can't live by crime fighting alone, and he just goes right inside. And you know exactly what's going to happen.
Well, and I love the tone of the show. Of course, helps. Like it makes things like that seem just a little bit titillating, but not over the top, right? Like, and that's the beauty of it. And you had some other quick pictures here that were punny bits or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
P.N. Gwyn.
He calls the Pentagon, like Batman just picks up, like, I'm just going to call the Pentagon. It's Batman. Yes. And they're like, okay. and the admiral here is playing with his secretary some sort of game.
Right.
And he's like, keep practicing as he's on the phone. And he's like, yeah, we sold a surplus pre-atomic submarine to a guy named P.N. Gwynn. He's like, he has an address? He's like, no, he left a P.O. box. Would you like that? He's like, no, that's fine. And then the admiral's like, oh, I get from your tone that something seems disconcerting. We haven't done anything stupid. And Batman's response is, Admiral, selling a surplus pre-atomic submarine and not getting a full address.
Good day, Gumble.
Good day, sir. And he just hangs up. Again, it's just making fun of the incompetence of government, and in this case, the military. It's like they don't even vet the people they're selling their surplus arms to, which might be a little true, I guess.
And again, now Script makes a good argument as to why this is not camp. If you want to take the time right now to do that, because I think you brilliantly make that argument.
So camp comedy is something that it doesn't really focuses on like the film as overall, or the camp style is like it's like a spoof, but not quite. It deals with a little bit of irony. It's not considered high art, kind of lowbrow to a degree, or not cleverly done. And this one here, it's all really well executed satire and a little bit of farce. And it's done with straight earnestness. Like camp is tongue in cheek, it winks to the audience quite obviously. This one here, it doesn't do that. And in fact, if you were to try to do like a little translation to another language on this part, I would not be surprised if the people interpreting it would take it seriously as opposed to a comedy, which it actually is, because it's really, really cleverly done. It's a lot of play on words. Even this here, the character that Lee Merriweather is playing, the fake Russian journalist from the Moscow Bugle, her name is Katanya Irina Titania Karenska-Alisov, and she calls herself Kit Kat, which is an acronym of her name. And the funny part is like it's basically a Kit Kat is I think in another language also means cat. It's got all those layers to it that, you know, if you were to translate this in another language and not understand the layers in the satire, it wouldn't come across as clever. You get genuinely confused that maybe this is serious.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you kind of escape the campiness. It's not low-hanging fruit jokes. It's actually like you kind of have to reach up there, or you have to know some of your literature and your references in order to really get all the humor as it comes across.
Yeah, there is always some really clever, punny things that are done with some of the names, and it's almost like how James Bond would do some things, like with the names of
various Bond girls. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it is similar to that. Absolutely.
So yeah, we got another super chat here from Scott, aka Sporking News Podcast. It says, "Great movie choice. How many Bat vehicles are there?" Well, Clobby, how many are there?
Right. Got your Batmobile, your as Script said, the beginning of some other vehicles. We get the Batboat, the Batcopter, and the Bat chopper, or the Bat cycle.
Now, would this have been the first
with go-kart? Yeah.
Now, this be the first appearance of those, or did they show up in the comics first?
In comics. Oh, yeah, they had them in comics before that, but yes. So they didn't start it on, none of those start on the show, but this is the first time you get to see everything but the Batmobile on the show, I believe. I want to say yes, because it was 66. It was the same year as the show, but I could be misremembering. It's been a while since I watched all of those, but I think it was the first time they showed all of them. Certainly the first time they showed the Batcopter.
I think it's the first time it's where you've had either a story where all four of them are used. In other episodes, it's either the Batboat or the Batmobile or the Batcopter, or the Batcopter or Batmobile and the Batbike, but never like all of them.
Right, that's right. Yeah, and they are cool beyond belief.
They are really cool, and the other part too is like there's toys released of them that are just they're screen accurate. And then to get back to the Batcopter, so we see a bunch of the stuff that Batman is prepared with, and I sent you the image, Tom, of the various repellents that
Yes.
are that are in the helicopter.
Oh my goodness.
I had it here. There it is.
There,
Zoom out a little bit.
it is zoomed in a bit, but it's the
Yeah.
Barracuda repellent, the whale repellent,
Whale.
manta ray, and then shark. And it's like oceanic repellent, bat
Right.
spray.
Oceanic, because you never know when you're going to be in the Batcopter and you're going to need those because you could be near an ocean, you know, sometimes, right? So,
And here's kind of the brilliance of what they did for Batman in the show and in the movie is the fact that he's always prepared for something. Like that stems from the comics. He prepares for various encounters, no matter how far-fetched they might be. And what they end up doing in Batman, which is really hysterical, is they don't just make Batman prepared. He also labels them. Like everything is labeled, even the bat ladder. When it's like dropped down at the very end, it says bat ladder. and and then on my Twitter, I showed just yesterday how even the bad guys label their stuff. So the Riddler has his shelf and it says private riddles, and then next to that shelf is Joker's, which says jokes private. And then beside that is Penguin, which has a Penguin's private Penguin food. But what's interesting is that private should be at the top of all three of them. But the reason they don't do that is because we had private riddles and then private jokes. At that time in the 60s, the vernacular for private jokes would be jokes about private parts or your genitals. So they flipped it so it's jokes private, which is the joke is that you don't want to play into the dirtiness of that. And I like those types of clever things, especially in the Batcave. Every single device is labeled, like bat magnifying glass, bat retinal scanner, bat computer, bat heavy water, bat light soft water recharge station, or water dispenser. It's straight there. Even in the show, Penguin has a label that says secret door, do not enter, and it's where he goes into his crime lab or his crime little meeting room. And they don't even try to hide it. And it's very, very clever that it's taken so seriously.
On that note, the audience has a few things to say. We have a member chat from Rob Altus who says, awesome choice. This is my Batman. Hail to you all. Well, thank you, Rob Altus. And then that 70s rock fan is here. How you doing, buddy? Who says, I love this movie. Well, we're glad that you're able to celebrate it with us. And then D-Bud Martin had a comment before. He said, actually, the movie was supposed to come out before the TV show. ABC movie, I think he moved the show up because so many of their shows were doing poorly in the ratings. Yeah, because that was the other thing I was trying to figure out script before the thing, because I thought the movie was supposed to be done
yeah, that's
before
true.
the show.
Actually.
I know they filmed the show first before they filmed the movie.
They did, but they were again.
Yeah,
like,
but basically
yeah,
they were doing it. They were the initial plan was to do it like the George Reeves Superman show. Was the whole point was they were going to drop the movie, then the show was supposed to come out that fall.
Yeah, so I'm guessing, because they moved the show up to January, because they had shot most of the show the previous year in '65, and then the movie on top of that, because the call sheets were in '65, and then I guess because the ABC was doing terrible in the ratings, especially after the holiday season, they're like, okay, well, these episodes are already in the can, might as well drop them and you leave that up to the movie. And that makes kind of sense. Not often that you get it, but I will say this, that strategy is basically kind of being cycled back today, because now we've got the movie and then we've got the HBO Max companion pieces that are coming. Yeah. And it's like they did this in the 60s, and I remember when I got to town in Hollywood and I was pitching stuff, I'm like, I think we should probably do a television show and then have a pinnacle event on film for theaters. We can amortize the cost of that production into the show for the following season and keep the budget steady. And everybody's like, yeah, if people like the show, they don't want to go see it as a movie, because then they'll have to watch the show. It's like, yeah, that's the point. We want them to watch the show.
Yeah, because those are the movies I dislike the most. Even though, I mean, I get why they're doing it. It's like when you go to see a movie of a TV show and it feels nothing like the fucking show, because they have to kind of reestablish everything, and it's like, I already know all this shit. It's like, yeah, but they're doing it because they know they're opening it to a wider audience. But yeah,
Exactly. But the fact of the matter is that this Batman movie circumvents that thing all the while, because Lorenzo Simpleton Jr., who wrote this script, he knew how to nail all the things in there. We had the press conference right after the whole event of the shark and all that stuff, where you get completely understand what's going on. You see the relationship of it, like they're duly deputized agents of the law, work with the police. They keep their identities secret so that even the people they live with don't even know that they're Batman and Robin. Aunt Harriet, I don't even think has a single line in this, but she's in 2 shots of the film.
Yep.
And yeah, you just kind of get it, they just throw it at you and they say, we know you're going to get this because they show us it more than just tell us it straight out. And even the exposition that we get is it's only those 4 super criminals, but then we see this really deep kind of relationship between them. So Joker is frustrated with the Riddler because he's kind of confusing with his conveyance of jokes and whatnot. The Penguin, it has a little bit going on with Catwoman in the fact that the Penguin wants to do this, but the Catwoman's kind of trying to take a leadership position in this united underworld that they formed, and she kind of is the leader of this. Because Catwoman and Penguin bicker with each other. Riddler and Penguin are kind of working all right. Joker and Catwoman work all right, but Joker and Riddler have their own kind of things going back and forth. And the dynamic is great because they're all fighting with each other, just like the real quote unquote United Nations of this film. And it's giving us character. It's giving us character that we can understand what's going on and why they're doing this. They want the biggest score they can, and they also want to get rid of Batman and Robin while they enact it. And the fact that you have 4 supervillains all given with considerable screen time and have a lasting mark within the movie is quite impressive because it hasn't been done since. And then on top of that, you even weave in a love story. It's a one-sided love story. Bruce Wayne falls for Kitka, who ends up being Catwoman, and he takes her out on a date. It's a double entendre. He's like, I'm doing this because I like her, but I'm also doing this in the hopes that the supervillains will kind of pounce on us so that we can catch them in the act and end this terror that they've been putting the city through. But because Robin doesn't want to keep spying on them, he turns off the observation thing when Bruce and Catwoman are kind of getting a little frisky, and that's exactly when they strike from rocket-propelled umbrellas.
yeah.
Oh, I love that shot of them flying through the air on the umbrellas.
I also love the flirting where, like, Catwoman's like saying, I close my eyes and I picture the Cossacks running to the police headquarters. And Bruce Wayne's like, close my eyes and I think of something far more intimate. and then she just kind of rolls her eyes as a result of that, but like leans into it because she's like, yeah, we're going to kidnap this guy.
Just Nova 1138 sends in another $4.99. Thank you so much. Says, I wonder if the writers look back at classics like this for inspiration, or if studios just pay the writers to write what they want. I don't think they force them to do anything. Probably. I mean, once in a while, I'm sure if you sign on to a project script, they'll advise you to check some things out. But I doubt they consider it. Especially nowadays, looking at things like Star Trek, they clearly don't make them.
I mean, the thing is that you don't get to pitch really IPs anymore unless someone says, hey, they're looking, this studio's looking for a take on Batman. Right. Come pitch them something. In which case, it's all on your own to do it. You don't get to you don't get told, what you have to do.
Right, but I'm saying, like, let's say you get brought into the Star Trek group. I doubt they tell them, you should probably check out the first few seasons of Star Trek and TNG and all that.
If it was a television show and it had already done a season, and you get hired as part of the writer's room, then they'd say, watch the shows, read the Bible, do that type of stuff. For features, Unfortunately, it's whatever your take is. If it's unique enough, but the same but different, we'll give it a go ahead and go from there. Sometimes it works. I'm indifferent on it. I mean, if I'm going for an assignment gig and I know what it's about, and if it's an existing IP, I will research the hell out of that until I can figure out a really unique pitch that hasn't been done that doesn't, deconstruct what the IP was. And that's my philosophy. It's really hard to do that because sometimes you'll get called in the morning. Like, hey, they want to see you this afternoon to pitch them this, and you're like, oh, great. If I don't know anything about that IP, I got to do a crash course in it, and you only have maybe a few hours, and odds of you trying to get something good out of that are slim. But if you're familiar with how studios think and what they want, you might be able to scrape the surface of a good pitch. And if the pitch goes well, you continue the research and hopefully you come up with some other great ideas that work into what you pitched, and you present your script. And if they like it, you're good. And if they don't, well, move on.
Indeed. Yeah, so thank you for that, Just Nova. I think we're gonna start wrapping this up because I gotta head over to Echo Base here soon. Was there any final thoughts on the Batman, the 1966 movie, script Dr. Klobby?
After you, sir.
Oh, okay. My final thoughts is that it's it's a good movie, good stakes. I like not so much the twist, but the accident at the end, where after they restore the 9 Security Council members, the languages are in the wrong countries.
Right.
Because it goes into actually a very political statement at the time, political within the universe of the show, which is that Robin suggests, hey, with all the way the world's going on, shouldn't we fix these guys a little? And Batman's like, no. And he's like, we shouldn't do that because it's going to be an empty gesture. It doesn't necessarily work. And Robin's like, oh, gosh, I guess you're right. And then they do it is the best they can. They separate all the colored dust, which represents these council members. And then after rehydrating them, it's like, well, I guess they're the same person, but they're all speaking different languages. and that's the joke of the Security Council is like, you have these 9 people that are supposed to be, working together, and neither one of them are speaking a common language or have an interpreter. So they're just yelling at each other from across the table.
I love how the whole world is like on pins and needles, like they're showing reports all over the world while Batman and Robin work feverishly in the Batcave to separate. And we are ready to rehydrate, and they go all over the world.
And all the different languages. Yep.
This movie is just pure fun from beginning to end. If you're a fan of this show, you just want to have a good time and you want to see what Batman again. It is, of course, like the show, very reflective of comics around that point. What especially 50s and early 60s Batman comics. But it is smart. It's clever. I never liked the camp term either. It's smart. It's clever. It knows it wants to be funny. It knows it's comedy. It's just beautifully shot, this one in particular. And what great performances in particular, I think, that really stand out the best is the performances by these villains, these great actors. Really, really just make this thing. It's colorful. It's just, you watch this, and you go, wow, imagine that when they made these characters, aimed these characters' films at the audience they were always intended to be, which is for everybody, but especially kids. Now we're making movies that have these names on them like Batman or The Batman or whatever with other characters like Batman or Superman, and they're not even for kids anymore, and it's just a shame. So go back and revisit a better time when you see this one and see Batman being what he's supposed to be. Not the Dark Knight Detective, which he was originally supposed to be, and we all like that the best, but showing that Batman can be versatile, and we can even have a laugh with Batman.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and it still is. There's an argument to be made as far as it being the most comic accurate, at least of that time, as I said the other day. I mean, true, there's some tongue-in-cheek nature to the humor that I don't want to say campy because it really isn't, but that doesn't mean it's not the most accurate. I mean, it pretty much is like the comic book come to life on screen, right down to the onomatopoeia and the little tongue-in-cheek jokes that were from the comics as well. I mean,
from the 50s, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially.
And even early 60s, absolutely.
Yep. And then on top of that, the moral compass of the character is quite faithful. He's a very
exactly.
Yeah. This is the few Batman, aside from the Batman the Animated Series, where the character of Batman is very secure with what he's doing, and he's kind of got all of his faculties about him. He's not struggling with tragedy or is being lost in the creature of the Batman or anything of that nature. He's a very competent, very focused character, which is more interesting because you'd figure with all the stuff and all the tragedy that he sees, it would chip away at him, but it doesn't. And that shows the fortitude and the temperance of Batman as a character that we haven't really seen in any of the more current live action adaptations of him.
Yeah. And speaking of, in celebration of all things Batman, this week we surprised you with Batman the movie. But considering a lot of you are probably going to be going out to seeing the new Batman film, Script Doctor, you want to tell everybody what we're going to talk about next week?
Yeah, next week we'll be taking a look at a Batman film that unfortunately had a very short theatrical run, but was a fantastic film, Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Hey, greatness.
That's right. Because as going off of what we just said before, as far as the 60s Batman series being most representative of what Batman was in the comics of that time, Batman the Animated Series was probably the most representative of what Batman was post that era. And so I think we're going to get into that. So maybe you'll have to join us for that one too, Klobby. Hopefully we'll be doing that next Saturday.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. If all schedules work out, I'm excited to talk about this one because likely Batman movie of '66, which had a great cast of actors for the '60s, Batman Mask of the Phantasm has a phenomenal voice cast in this movie as well.
Yes, I think it's the greatest Batman movie ever to play on movie screens.
Has Abe Vigoda in that. Who would have thought Abe Vigoda would do a Batman movie?
Abe Vigoda.
That's true. Very true.
So yeah, I can't wait to talk about that next week with you gentlemen. And until then, please hit that like button. Please check out Script Doctor's channel. Check out Clobbering Times. I'm pretty sure Six has been sharing the links there. Yeah, I see the links right there. So thank you for that, Six. And anybody else who's been here as far as wrenches, I've seen, I think it was a few people in here. Thank you so much for your wrenching. We appreciate that. I know Steven was here earlier. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate all the love and support. Clobbering Times always does some of the best comic book stuff you can find on YouTube. And although Script hasn't been able to do a lot lately, he still has a great bunch of classic reviews and videos for you to check out. And I'm sure at some point here, he's going to get some new stuff up again as well. I know you've talked about it.
I don't have another assignment job.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to take if I get one.
Trust me, I know what that's like. I got this stuff coming up tonight, but yet Andre's got 2 videos stacked on top of me right now. It's like, yeah, brilliant. Like, I got all this stuff to do. But yeah. So yes, next week, Mask of the Phantasm. And follow me over to Echo Base here. I'll be over there soon. So thank you for hopping in, Klobby. And of course, thank you always.
Thank you for having me.
Script Doctor. And I see 70s. Yeah, 70s Rock Fan is also wrenching today. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, keep watching A-rated B movies and B-rated A movies because we love them. Mm-hmm. We never did establish if this was an A-rated B movie or a B-rated A movie. I think it's an A-rated B movie because it technically is a B movie.
Yeah, I think it's an A-rated B movie. Yeah. Even though it does have a bigger budget, it's still built off of a television budget.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So yes, for the argument out there. Take care, kids. We love you.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.